Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Tuesday Turf Talk with the Lawn Tools. I'm the Lawn Tool, right tool here, Jordan. And today we have an exciting guest. I'm excited anyway about having Leah Withrow on our show. So I'll let Leah introduce herself and tell you. Let's just get a little bit of a background, Leah, and then where you're working now. Tell us about yourself.
I'm Leah. I'm the head groundskeeper for the Reno Aces, is the AAA affiliate of the Arizona Diamondbacks. And I somehow ended up as a head groundskeeper at 25 here. Awesome. I'm from the Reno, Tahoe area. I'm from about an hour south of Reno, born and raised. Ended up going to North Dakota State University for college to pursue my degree in turf. So my bachelor's of science is in sports turf grass management. And then through quite the chain of events of internships and meeting people, I mean, the turf industry, especially in minor league baseball and baseball in general, is pretty small. So once you know one head groundskeeper, you pretty much know them all. So after interning, my first ever internship was here in Reno, my first year out of college, or first summer after my freshman year. Loved it. Then ended up interning with the Milwaukee Brewers the summer after that, and then interned with was a seasonal assistant back in Reno. I wanted to spend my last summer before I graduated college back home enjoying things, and also needed to work. And so it was the first year we actually shared a soccer team as well. So we've hosted a USL soccer team alongside our baseball schedule. So we converted the field about 12 to 15 times a year back and forth between soccer and baseball. And that was a cool experience that summer to learn that chaos. And then graduated college and did the dumb girl thing and followed a boy out of college to Flagstaff, Arizona, which I love Flagstaff. It's a cool town. I worked at Northern Arizona University as a landscaper, and I hated it. I wanted to be in sports. I wanted to be a part of the game. I didn't really want to power wash puke off the side of dorm rooms. So in a weird turn of events, that boss I had interned with during that soccer crossover year had 2 assistant positions open, and he called me and he's like, one of them's yours if you want it. And I was like, heck yeah, I want it. And moved back to Reno, did a full season as a full-time assistant. It was awesome. My old boss is probably my favorite human being ever, taught me so much. And then in 2020, he ended up leaving before everything happened. And so I was like, oh, shoot, what are we going to do? Like, I had no idea what I was doing, going to do a whole season by myself for the first time. And then 2020 happened and I didn't have to do it. So it was kind of a weird blessing in disguise that I was able to get my feet wet running a AAA facility without having to run a AAA facility at its full caliber, I guess. We did play soccer. The soccer team still existed for the last 3 years. And we hosted a fanless soccer season last fall. And then because the field was built in 2009, so we renovated it this off season. That was a big project I took over. And then now we're playing for real this spring.
And now we're here, caught up to the present.
Now we're present. Well, yeah.
That's awesome. Like you said, it was a blessing in disguise, I guess, that you got to like ease your way in. But we all know you would have been just fine either way.
I don't know. I still don't know what I'm doing most of the time here. But I did appreciate last year being able to mess around with equipment and cultural practices and mess around with a fertility program and work with my reps in my time and not on baseball time, because baseball time is no time at all. So that was ended up being good learning year. And now I'm in my first full year as a head groundskeeper, and I'm learning a lot very fast.
Right. Well, yeah, with a whole new, like, more confidence though than when you like would have had to go in right off the bat. So that's cool.
Exactly. And with a brand new field, I mean, it's not the old field at all. Like every maintenance practice I was doing with the old field, I kept sort of, but in different ways with the new field, because you can't treat this new soil, you can't treat this new grass the way we were treating the old field. The old field was like 75% POA. So a lot of it was annual bluegrass. It wasn't deep rooted. It divoted a ton. We catered a lot to maintaining the POA instead of the bluegrass. And now this brand new field is 100% Kentucky bluegrass. It's beautiful, plays great. It's super strong, really durable, holds its own, surprisingly, even in the heat we had last week. And it's a completely new field, though. So I had to build a completely different fertility plan. I had to build a completely different maintenance plan, the whole thing. It's a different field.
What do you know what specific variety, what seed Kentucky bluegrass did you use?
It's the 365 SS blend.
Oh.
It's 3 different bluegrasses in that 365 blend, but it is awesome. It is more heat tolerant bluegrass. My buddy is the Sacramento River Cats head groundskeeper, and he does Sacramento is about 2 hours from us in here in Reno, and they have a very similar climate. They're just not at elevation, so they get about 10 to 20 degrees warmer than us on any given day. And he's got a blue muta, so he uses the 365 bluegrass, but then he's also got Bermuda growing in the summer there because it gets so hot. And that bluegrass survives in Sacramento. I was like, it definitely could survive here. So I found a sod farm up in Washington that produces it, and it is flawless. It is absolutely beautiful.
So speaking of bluegrass, which I have Bermuda, and so I'm always envious of these cool season grass stripes. And that is one of the big things. Just, so a week ago, 2 weeks ago, you made this video that showed people saying, oh, don't you love it when, the baseball team is away? And your video's like, no, that's when all the real work happens. But at the very end of the video, you show this stripe pattern that kind of blew my mind. And I want to get some behind the scenes information here on how you find these patterns, how you come up with this stuff. Like, I don't even know.
So that design in particular, I give thanks to my assistant's girlfriend. Found it. It was actually a Leicester City FC football club up in Britain. Has this beautiful design on the soccer pitch. And I was looking at it, and I mean, Leicester City is known for their awesome designs. And he showed it to me, and I'm like, you know what? I think we could do something similar. Now, granted, they're on a rectangular field, and it's a more rectangular pattern, so it's easy. It was probably a lot easier for them. Right. But we gave it a shot, and it turned out awesome. It did take me, I walked 20 miles setting that pattern.
My word. Okay, that's the real secret is that I don't take enough time to burn in my stripes, I guess. To make them show up as well.
Well, that, and I'm just really bad at geometry. I learned I'm really bad at geometry. I couldn't figure out these angles to save my freaking life. I couldn't do it. I kept stringing, so it's the big chunks, and then it's stringing those 2 passes, the light and the dark, and then the light and the dark going the other way to create that diamond that X's in the middle of the chunks. And doing those single lines, I was about ready to pull my hair out because I couldn't get the angle right. I was trying to follow, I guess, the base path between first and second and the base path between third and second so that it would intersect and make a square or a diamond. I was just walking back and forth, adjusting the string, and then the string would be off, and I have to walk to the other side and readjust that nail, and then walk to the other side, readjust that nail. And I'd run up to the sweets to make sure it was straight, and then I'd mow it, and then I'd do it again. And I did that for 20 lines, and it took me about 10 hours that day, but it was definitely worth it because it was probably my most commented pattern by the front office here at the stadium. And clearly TikTok enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. Oh, that's crazy. So that's my problem is I guess I don't have any strings, and I don't take that much time to really plan it out. I'll admit this. I tried to replicate it because I was going to make a joke out of it. I tried to replicate that pattern on my lawn. I'll put the picture up on this video. But I just understand that I'm not claiming that this is good at all. It actually turned. I was going to make a joke and say hey, when you try to cheat off the smart kid in class and end up getting a D anyway, because that's kind of how it felt. I was like, this Bermuda just really did not like these stripes very well. And anyway, but I'll put it up just so people can laugh at me. So that's awesome. That just shows how much work actually goes into it, because it just seems like, bluegrass, it stripes so much easier, right? It's no big deal. You just go over it once and it's easy. But all the stringing and the measuring, I'm sure, is way more work than anybody knows.
Yeah, we tried to measure it out and make the diamonds all equal sizing, and I quit that about halfway through. So each diamond's like a snowflake. They're each different sizes, but from high above, no one will ever know.
I wouldn't.
How
Yeah,
would
I
they?
never would have known. It looked perfect. It was really awesome.
Well, thank you.
What else? So actually, no. Let's go back to the renovation, the big renovation. Again, I saw pictures on TikTok. You went like all new dirt. I mean, tell us what all went into that. Let's just go into the renovation. I want to hear how much work went into that.
A lot. Surprisingly, though, the team I chose was unbelievable. It was supposed to be a 6-week project. We got done in 4. So that was awesome. Weather
never happens.
cooperated. Yeah, no, weather actually cooperated with us. We had obviously planned for northern Nevada. We're only 30 minutes from Tahoe. We're at almost 5,000 feet elevation. So we do get snow and we do get rain and weather in the winter. And this renovation started in February. So we had planned for crappy weather and we somehow lucked out and were able to trek through. So it started with they came down the first day of phrase mode the entire old grass out, which was mostly POA, so it came out pretty easy. And then we took, so our root zone is 10 inches of sand. It had, over the 12-year life of this stadium, had compacted, and the top 5 inches were pretty much just organic matter and black layer. And we did a ton of testing before the renovation, obviously, to figure out where everything was at, how much we could save. Our field was draining at 0.0 inches of water an hour. So not great. Had to completely redo the root zone. So we took those top 5 inches out that were clogging everything up, that black layer, that organic layer. But the bottom 5 inches were actually still pretty good and had a lot of nutrient value, which I didn't really want to lose, because that's the hardest thing in a field renovation, especially on a sand-based field, is you build up 12 years worth of nutrients for that plant to bank and get to whenever it needs to. And if you completely wipe that out, put fresh sand in, you spend the entire first year just putting granulars on granulars on granulars and sprays on sprays on sprays to try to build that soil back up so that the plant has a backup plan, a backup nutrient source. And so we tried to save the most we could, which was the bottom 5 inches. And then we brought in a USGA sand and filled up the top 5 inches. And then we blended it so that we had an even mix of both the old sand and the new sand. We regraded it to MLB spec and then put the brand new sod down. And then we did do brand new infield dirt, brand new mound and plate, and called it a day.
And most of that's just kind of like brute force manual labor. Like, you've got a crew out there with, I mean, I assume quite a bit of equipment, but I mean, you just got to move dirt. Like, there's not really an easy way to get it done.
Nope. We spent, after the phrase mowing only took about a day getting all the grass off. And then it took us about the rest of the week. It took us another 6 days to bulldoze that top 5 inches out. We started with the outfield. The infield was pretty frozen. We get a pretty solid shade line here in the winter. And so we had to thaw out the infield in aprons before we could get to those. But bulldozed the entire first week of that top 5 bad layer. And then the next week was just truckload on truckload on truckload of brand new sand. And when it came in, it was like beach sand. It was white. And I just wanted to put a chair and sit and drink a Corona and watch them all work. But I'm not that mean, so I didn't do that. But then it was just spreading. I think it was 2,800 tons of brand new sand, and spreading that out, and then taking the tiller, the rhododendron, and just tilling it, mixing it. And you had to do small layers at a time. So we basically piled all of the sand in left field and slowly spread it out. And you had to do like 2 inches, till it, spread the other 2 inches of the new sand, till that, final inch, till that, because you can't just go 5 inches of new sand and try to till through that. It wasn't ever going to work. And the blend actually turns out really good. We now drain efficiently. We get a rainstorm, which it never rains in Nevada. So not necessarily a problem, but it is nice. And the bluegrass does love it. It is, though, like I was just putting granular out, it is a less nutrient dense sand now because it's halfly diluted. So we've spent a lot of this year trying to get it back to a good spot so that if I don't get the foliar out when I'm supposed to, a game or an event happens at the stadium where my hands are tied, that the plant can hold itself over in the soil.
So Leah, what your sand base? What kind of ratio do you have? Like, most of people in the NFL have about like 90-10 or 92-8% organic. What did you end up going with?
So we didn't add any organic. I have no idea what the ratio is now. I need to do a more in-depth soil test right now. We're just trying to get our fertility back to where it's comfortable. But it was whatever that bottom 5 inches. It didn't have a ton of organic left in it, but there was the big debate of, do we put in some organics in the sand, or do we just go straight sand? And knowing the area well and knowing my skill set, I felt more comfortable just going straight sand and pushing the nutrient program instead of trying to put in some organic, because that's what got us into that pickle to begin with, was just so much organic matter and so much unnecessary thatch layers and other things built up. But that happens over time. I mean, it was a 12-year-old field. It was inevitable.
Yeah, in the NFL, you won't be able to go to 100% sand because there's nothing there to hold the roots in the root zone mix.
My question was, after that huge renovation, did any of the players seem to notice? Like, did they notice that the field felt different?
Yes, I did. So unfortunately, because of last year and the Diamondbacks, the way that they did the alternate site, a lot of our guys are actually brand new guys from AA. They didn't have a lot of returners coming back from 2019 because they had all, rightfully so, made it to the majors and were in Arizona. But I have gotten quite a few people that have come down recently or started say, this new field is great. Like, I don't even play on fields this nice in the majors. And I mean, that's as big of a compliment as you can get. I mean, yeah. Major League Baseball has some beautiful fields. They have some rough fields, but I did get quite the compliment on, because the Diamondbacks are our affiliate, and they went artificial in 2019 was their first season with the artificial, I think. They have a real dirt infield, but all the grass is artificial. And we have guys come down and say they love playing here more because it's real grass and the ball plays more true and it's slower. But they've also said they like the dirt better and they just like being on grass again. And I think most elite athletes can say the same thing. They prefer grass over turf. But I was quite the compliment to get.
Yeah, I bet.
When awesome. Even they notice that the field is new and it's playing better.
I don't know if anybody from the audience has any questions, but we could start kind of filtering those in probably. But Spin, you guys were talking about something, so if I interrupted, you can continue with your questions or whatever you guys were talking about too.
Oh, no. I mean, we were just talking about different types of root zones. I mean, like in the NFL, you can't go to 100% sand. The Patriots tried to do that, and it didn't work because there was nothing there holding the roots in. So when you went back to throw a pass or something, it would just wrinkle up on you. The sod would just wrinkle up on you because, there's nothing organically for the roots to attach to. But baseball's a little bit different. There's nobody pushing against each other on baseball. So you could possibly get away with 100% sand or 90-10 mix. Yeah, that's just what we're two different kind of types of structure, And
also, you guys sod a lot more than we ever do. Large amounts of areas. So you guys have to have a quick root in and you have to have a solid root zone when you do sod. And also, 90% of my game is played on dirt. Pitchers on dirt, batters on dirt. Most of the infielders are on the dirt. We have 3 of the guys on grass most of the time. So you get game
by batting practice. BP beats you up more than a game does.
Yeah. Definitely that. Our guys are pretty good. Most groundskeepers have a talk with the guys when they come in for the first day and they do their press junket tour and sit down and talk with the GM and the president, and then they get to hear little old groundskeeper yell at them for wearing cleats. I think as long as you explain to the players, like, hey, the more you wear turfs, the better the field's going to play. The more you wear turfs in practice, the better the field's going to play for the game. I get a lot of veteran guys are normally the guys that wear the turfs. You can definitely tell the guys that have been in the majors and which ones haven't by who comes out in BP and in cleats. Like, little buddy, you haven't made it quite yet, I see. That's the running joke in minor leagues, the guys that come out in the cleats. And I get it if you're trying to break in the cleats, and I get it if you're trying to rehab, but most of the time I try to get them to wear the turfs just to protect the grass and the dirt, just because I don't have time, especially on a game day, to fix anything that you mess up. So if you're going to make a divot in the outfield because you wanted to wear cleats messing around during BP, I don't have time to fix that. And then if you have a ball hop weird because you made that hole, it's on you. And I think after you level with them and they understand where you're coming from, and they understand why you ask those things. I'm not just trying to be the mean groundskeeper that wants you off my grass. I'm doing it for the game. I'm doing it so that your plays during the game are more pure. So we work on that.
Yeah, I get that. Good for you, though. Stand up for your field and stuff.
Well, they're more than willing to work with you most of the time if they understand. Most of the groundskeepers I feel like it's kind of a cranky old groundskeepers thing, just to be like, stay off the grass, don't wear cleats, and they don't give them the reason why. If they understand the why, it makes more sense, and they're more willing to abide by the rules. So
yeah, totally. Yeah. So how many games do you have a year at home?
This year is 60.
Okay.
They just added 10 more games, so they added 5 more away, a 5 away series and a 5 home series. So our season does not end until October 3rd this year.
Oh, wow. That's
because, we had April get canceled because of COVID. They pushed April back. So we didn't play our first game until May 13th, which is late for us. But honestly, I hate April baseball. No one likes April baseball. No one wants to go. Players don't want to be there. Workers don't want to be there. It's cold. Unless you're playing in Florida or Arizona, nobody wants to be there.
Yeah, yeah.
Most of these guys are coming straight out of spring training in Florida or Arizona, and then they have to go to Chicago or New York or Detroit or Minnesota, Milwaukee, like all these cold places in April. I hate April baseball. So I really wasn't mad about missing out on April. And our falls are super nice here in Nevada. So I'm all for playing through September instead of April.
Now, does your bluegrass go dormant in the wintertime towards the end, January, February?
Yep. So we'll get snow. Once we get snow cover, she'll go to bed. And then it just depends on when our nighttime temps start warming back up, which normally doesn't happen until April. Most years it snows on opening day here. I remember the last 4 it snowed on opening day. So it was not mad when we played in May instead. And but gave and plus having that renovation, I mean, the last day we sodded was March. I think we were done March 6th. So it gave me all of March and then all of April, which I wasn't planning on, to have a full grow in, really get things dialed in, force some granulars, get that rolled out real nice, fill the seams in, get a good top dress on it, get an aerate it real quick, just a light needle tine on it before anybody even touched it, before there was even a single high school game on it. So it gave me more time with the grow-in, which was really nice.
Right. Yeah, that sounds perfect. I was always, when I was with the Colts, we had bluegrass fields. I had 3 fields, and it was kind of hard to get it all greened up for rookie camp. And that's one of the worries that I had with the bluegrass. We finally went to Bermuda, but it was difficult to get it all greened up, nice and green and growing thick by the time they had rookie camp. So that was one of my worries.
I mean, past few years, I mean, our winter has been so late that we have a pretty nice field until Thanksgiving. I think is the last time I spray anything. I'll spray a fungi the day before. I always spray a day before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And just put the final winter fungi out, and then, which is a fungicide. I don't know who's all on this. I'm just speaking slang and throwing weird words out there. I spray a fungicide for any winter diseases the day before Thanksgiving. And then we pretty much put her to bed for December, January. The past few years, we've had the soccer team, and they normally start in February. So we've had to throw the grow blankets on and try to get it to wake it up earlier than it prefers to. So now that soccer's gone and we're strictly baseball, I think we'll be able to wake it up in March without any grow blankets, hopefully, and she'll be fine.
No, so I've heard murmurs and different things. I don't know how like publicly available this information is. So you just tell me, no comment. I don't know. But as far as like how far does it go with playability, like teams coming to town that hits a lot of grounders, we want to keep the grass a little taller here or do something different with the grass to help with the home field advantage sort of thing. Does it happen? Do you talk about it? What's the story there?
Yep. There's limited amount of things we get to do for the team that they prefer. Adjusting mowing heights is definitely one of them. Our guys prefer to play slower, so I'm mowing at 1 inch right now pretty consistently. I've kind of wanted to drop it down this fall here in September. I want to drop it down to about 3/4 of an inch just to see what this bluegrass would do. I was never able to do that with the old field just because the POA was so dense. I was just ripping it up every time I cut it too short. So I've heard a lot of good things about this 365 bluegrass. Likes to be cut shorter, so I want to give that a shot. I don't know how the team will feel about it going shorter. It means it'll play faster. Very rarely do they ever adjust it, like team by team, like who's the visiting team is. It's more based on the team skill set of the home team. If they have a bunch of rookies coming up and they know that their defense needs some work, we'll raise it up. If they have a more confident group of guys that have been here before, we can lower it and they'll play fine. Wetness of the infield is a big thing. It's a huge thing. Each guy likes it a different way. So I try to keep moisture in it all 9 innings. Some teams, when they come into town, especially like Tacoma, where it's always wet all the time there, our coach has asked us to like, hey, lighten up the water so the infield's a little bit harder, something that they're not used to playing on. It throws their defense off a little bit. Little stuff like that is about all I can have control over, I guess.
Right. There's going to be regulations where you can't change too much, but no, it's still cool. There's even like a part of that that goes into the actual gameplay. I think it's cool.
Yeah. This year's players is a good group of guys we have here in Reno. And we've had the catcher just come up and be like, hey, catcher's area was a little wet. Can we get it drier? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Until you tell me, I'm just going to keep doing it the way I've been doing it. So I'm happy to make adjustments based on who likes third base more wet than the first baseman does. So I'll wet for third base more than I wet first base when I go to do the pregame water. Or this pitcher likes the mound more dry and this pitcher likes it more wet. And so it's easy fix. It's just getting that relationship with the team and the coach and knowing who's pitching that night and making the adjustments.
Well, I am actually home, and this is kind of the time that I usually make my exit. And so I guess I'll just go ahead and say thank you, Leah. This has been awesome. Been great having you on. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us.
No worries. Thank you for having me. And I really did. I laughed quite literally out loud when I saw you duet my video. It was pretty funny.
Well, thanks. I try to make the lawn fun. That's sort of my motto.
It was good. It was great.
But anyway, thanks again, and I guess we'll talk to y'all later. Everybody have a good one.
Thank you, Jordan.
See ya. Thank you.
Yeah, Lee, I don't have. Some beach has a question. Do you have snow mold prevention down in place, and do you cover the field for the winter? I think you answered the covering the field for the winter, but he was wanting to know if you use a snow mold prevention.
We do. Yeah, we don't cover unless we need to wake it up early in the spring for an event. Our winters are pretty mild. We'll get some snow that'll cover us for a little bit. Normally our days are pretty warm, so it melts pretty quick. There's really no reason to cover the field unless we're trying to warm the soil up for a early baseball season or a special event of some kind. And then snow mold prevention is that fungicide I spray around Thanksgiving it's just a broad the Lexicon is my favorite Cadillac of broad spectrum or fungicides that I find works the best for our area. It's pretty dry here, so we don't fight a ton of disease.
Right.
Thank God, knock on wood. But the Lexicon seems to work the best to fight any snow mold coming out of the winter.
Yeah, this has been a tough year for disease, especially. I've never seen so much disease on Bermuda turf before in my life. It seems like everybody's got the fungicides and everything out to prevent that on Bermuda.
That's crazy because at least on the West Coast, we've been on fire. It was 104 pretty much all last week, 10% humidity, maybe, and no rain in sight. It's just been dry, dry, dry. So we haven't experienced too much issue there.
Yeah, that sounds like perfect weather, though. So our humidity is, I'm in Oklahoma, and our humidity is anywhere from 60 to 70%.
Jeez.
But, yeah, I haven't got any, my son lives in Arizona, and the heat there compared to the heat here is totally different. It's a lot hotter in Oklahoma, but the temps are a lot higher than in Phoenix and Tempe where he's at, but it's a lot wetter here, so you feel a lot more. But, I haven't seen any fungus on my Bermuda, but everybody around me is getting dollar spot, brown patch, and some people are getting pythium, but, I've never dealt with that before in my life. So with all this new technology Bermuda that's coming out, latitude, Tahoma, Northbridge, this grows really thick, no air movement in there, and people are getting the diseases on them. So, Leah, I really appreciate you coming on. I loved your video.
Of course. Thank you.
That really shows what you do. And most people don't realize how hard it is to keep a baseball field up or, any type of grass and what's behind the scenes. And your video really put it in perspective. I mean, you saw everything that you do and you do that every day. And, most people come to the game and just see a beautiful field and doesn't know how hard it takes to keep it like that and at that level. And it just takes one day to make it go the other way. And nobody really,
I know and I didn't even get everything in that video. I didn't even have the fact that we top dressed or that we edged the warning track or that we did multiple other things. It was just like the very top of the, Yeah,
the stuff that you do every day that people don't realize what you do every day. Most people don't realize when George Tomer retired, I was up for the Kansas City Royals job. And at that time, the Richardsons called me to come for an interview in Charlotte to be the head groundskeeper for the Panthers. And I was wondering what was going on with that, but no one realizes the time. I had to make a judgment call and say, hey, do I want to work for the Royals and work 80 hours a week, or do I want to go work in the NFL and get off, at a decent hour every day? Because nobody realizes you got to cover that field no matter what. If you got a rain situation, you have to cover that field. And if it gets, you got to come in at 2 a.m. and uncover 3 a.m. or whatever. Most people don't realize that you can't cover the field on a Friday and uncover it on a Monday. So
nope, grass does not take days off, unfortunately.
It doesn't.
And so I get so much crap from my boss and the front office people. They're like, why don't you take a day off? And I'm like, I do take afternoons off, but I still have to come in and mow, or I still have to come in and spray, or I still have to come in and hand water, or whatever it is, because it's a living, breathing thing. It doesn't just stop at 5 o'clock so I can go home. That's not how grass works. So
Right.
I wish it did, but it's not how it works. And it is eye-opening to a lot of people, players, coaches, the front office people. The general public are just amazed at how much time actually goes in behind the scenes. Like the team leaves for 6 days and I had to do all that in 6 days.
Yep.
It's more than a full-time job, but I don't know if I could do any other job, honestly. I'm not fit for a front office job. I know that. I can't sit in front of a computer for 8 hours a day. I don't want to sell tickets. That sounds miserable. I can't, not a great people person, so I'm not really good at customer service. And I know all the hours are worth it because every fan that comes into the stadium and you get that first look at the field, that's the first thing you look at when you walk into a stadium.
Exactly.
it's that first like, oh shoot, like I'm in this game. I'm actually here at the ballpark. So I take a lot of pride in that, and I take a lot of that to heart to make sure that people feel that when they come in.
Yeah, and it shows. I mean, I think you're doing an awesome job. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe all the stripes and all the work you've done, and it's just unbelievable. You're doing a hell of a job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm trying. I'm barely keeping my head afloat right now, head above water, but I got a good assistant, and we're just trying to get through this first season, figuring it out. Next one will be better, I hope.
Yeah. Well, Jay just popped up here. Jay, you have a question?
I do. Hello, Senorita. Jay Laveau, one of the admins here. A question about fertilization. Like, how do you like to go out and feed the field? Like, are you going? Like, are you the type to go out with like a pound of nitrogen and then put it under regulation? Are you spoon feeding with like a tenth or 2/10 of a pound? And how much of a difference is it to any previous fields you've worked on or whatever? If it's like straight sand or like a clay base or both type of soil?
Unfortunately, when you work in baseball, you're at the mercy of the baseball schedule, which is 12 to 18 games a month. So I don't have the luxury to spoon feed. I don't have the time, unfortunately. So I put out about a pound every 6 weeks. I love the product Enflex. It releases over those 6 weeks, gets me through until I can find the next break in the homestands. And I do like to try to aerate every 3 weeks in between that, because that nitrogen is slow release. Every time I punch holes about halfway in that 3 to 4 week mark, right when it's starting to die out, as soon as I start punching holes to get some oxygen in that sand, and it re-wakes some of that nitrogen back up, and then I get the second half of that nitrogen from that fertilizer to fill in those last 3 weeks until I can get to it again. That's my bread and butter, is the Enflex Aerate program, just because I notice the most benefits from doing that. I just put out a 15-15-15. I do a soil test every other month just to see where I'm at, especially with a new field like I have. I have to see what I'm putting out. If I'm putting out too much of one thing, not enough of another thing, the soil test will tell me. Soil tests don't lie. So I had to make an adjustment this time around after getting my June soil test. I was a little low in my nitrogen and potassium. That the 15-15-15 is a quick release. It'll get it out, get us through this homestand until I put the Enflex out at the end of the month. So
I've got one more question from Evie. Could you go into more detail about the Poana as a field and its playability, since a homeowner usually sees it or considers it a weed?
I also consider it the devil plant. I hate POA. So our last field, over 12 years and a couple groundskeepers, different programs. The last groundskeeper did not keep a PGR program, also didn't collect clippings. So it exacerbated the POA problem quite a bit. And it's a hard grass to play an aggressive sport on. Like when we were sharing with soccer, you noticed a lot of divoting. The players were complaining that the field was too soft because it is a spongy grass, and they were complaining that they were having poor footing, and every time that they went to slide, a huge chunk came out. And I mean, I noticed it. It doesn't make me feel good watching the games and seeing grass flying everywhere the way it was, because you put so much work and time into trying to strengthen a plant that's just not strong. POA roots are never going to go any deeper than 2 inches. Like, that's just the fact of the plant. And so you have to play to that a lot more, which means like spoon feeding it more, watering it excessively, just because it doesn't have the roots to do a flood and dry out. Like, you can't do that with POA or you'd have no field. So it was a very exhausting job when you have a mostly POA field, because you have to baby it even more so, because that plant can't sustain itself. It needs nutrients constantly, it needs water constantly, and even then you have a poor quality field. Even then you're still getting divots, even then you're still having that spongy, bushy, tough plant to work with. So on this new field, I am on top of it. I refuse to let the POA take over this new field. I do spray a PGR every 6 weeks. I spray a combo of Trimit and Proxy. I find that works the best out here. A lot of golf course superintendents I talked to around the Reno Tahoe area recommended that combo when I was looking into it. And it does suppress those seed heads from forming. And then I do have started in the spring and fall, I spray the Barricade just to prevent any of the germinating when that seed is in its prime in the spring and fall. So spring and fall Barricade app, and then the summer months, June, July, August, I will do the Proxy Trimit blend. That seems to work out pretty good. And then both myself and my assistant are good at identifying that plant and cutting it out when I need to, and just sanding and seeding the hole just to prevent it from spreading and getting worse. Because I mean, I also bought buckets for the mower, so I collect my clippings. So I'm trying not to spread the seed any more than it already is, because it'll escalate quickly. POA will get onto your field and take it over in 3 years' time.
Yes. It's a very nauseous, grassy weed, in my opinion. You know, when I went to Germany, I did an American Bowl in Germany, and they have a little field right behind their Olympic Stadium called the My Field, and that's where Hitler supposedly gave a speech to 1 million soldiers. And it was all Poana, and it was the most beautiful turf I've ever seen in my life. One guy would start mowing it. He had a 20-inch reel mower he would pull behind a tractor, and by the time he got done, it was time for him to start over again. That's how big this field was. It was unbelievable. I could put 20 full-size football fields in this thing. And it was all Poana. We had practice there, and it did great, but it was really super thick. But it was awesome. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it was Poanas, but it was pretty nice. But not for me.
Not for me either. I guess if you can mow, I've a lot of golf courses use it on their putting greens, because you can mow it so short, and if you can keep the seed heads down and you can keep it from getting bushy and you keep it tight, you top dress it a lot and roll it, it's workable. But I don't know, I'm not a fan. I will do everything in my power to prevent any POA ever to exist.
I've got another question for you. Got time for another question?
Sure.
Okay, he says, could you ask what her favorite perk is of being a groundskeeper in the minors that doesn't have to do with any work on the field? I'm sorry.
Oh, perks of the minors that doesn't have to do with the field. I think some of the perks are, I guess, flexibility of being able to come and go out of the stadium. I feel like having the smaller staff, being able to know everybody in my front office, being able to know who's walking around day to day, have friends in the front office. I feel like, I mean, you probably know, you worked in NFL, where those front offices are hundreds of thousands of people. You never get to know everybody, where the minor leagues is 50 people. And like, you have friends you get to make in ticket sales. And like, I'm about to room with our audio video board guy, and like, we were able to go out for drinks after the games, and like, you get to befriend more of the people at the stadium that you see every day, because if you're not friends with them, then you probably don't have a lot of friends, because you're always at the stadium. So that part's really nice. When I was in Milwaukee working for the Brewers that summer, they did an intern lunch, and it was super awkward, because the only people I ever saw were the grounds crew and landscape interns. And we go up to this nice fancy suite, and we had to dress up and all the things, and we're looking around and we're like, I don't know a single other person in this room besides the 5 of us, because you never get to talk to the front office in a major league stadium. You have no reason to go above ground, I guess, so to say, when you're in when you're in the major leagues or in the NFL. You just don't interact with the front as much as you do in the minor leagues, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's the way it was with the Royals when I was there for 16 years. You didn't see anybody in the front office. But in the NFL, it was completely different. I mean, I worked practices and everything else, and the front office came to practice and stuff, and we'd all have Christmas parties and stuff, so we got to know each other pretty well. And boy, do I have a lot of stories about that. But yeah, so, that's one of the perks. You get free bats and free balls and signed balls and signed shoes and stuff like that, but that's
it is nicer. Yeah, it's easier to interact with the players and coaches most of the time, because as much as it is a job interview for a lot of them, they rely on you to some extent to like show them the way, like to show them how to act. And like me making the turf rule, I know a lot of major league head groundskeepers request that you wear turfs in the majors. So by me asking you to do that, when you go up to the majors, you're not surprised when, granted, the Diamondbacks is like, you should probably put turfs on. And the guys at this level are younger and happy-go-lucky and more willing to talk to you, get to know you, create that bond so that you're able to make that field the way they want it. Where I feel like once you get into the major leagues, it's don't speak unless spoken to. It's everybody minds their own business. The major league guys feel like the ground screw's a little bit below them, so they just don't really interact with you a ton. I mean, not every guy's like that. You have a prick on every team, but I feel like the minor league players appreciate what you do a lot more and say thank you a lot more and relate, because they know that we're trying to get up to the majors too. Like my goal one day is to hopefully be a major league groundskeeper, and they respect that. And I know they're trying to be a major league baseball player. So I think there's a mutual respect for trying to move up when you're in the minor leagues.
I mean, most people don't know, you see Peyton Manning in commercials and stuff like that, but I tell you what, that guy is one hell of a guy. Every Christmas, he would go and walk around and give everybody $50 for every year that you work for the Colts. And he would walk all the way to the very back of the custodian office. And every person that he didn't know, he would hand them an envelope. And for every year you worked there, you got $50. And he personally signed card and everything. And that's one of the things that he did every year. And he didn't have to do that, but and you meet a lot of people that's like that, and it's just nice.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So if you ever hear anybody talk about Peyton Manning in a bad tone, just he's a hell of a guy, and he's a hell of a jokester too. But an awesome person. But no, I appreciate you coming on. And this Pro Talks Discord is for everybody that can get on and answer questions and if you feel you have free time, you come on and just answer questions and load up pictures and just tell everybody here what you're doing, if you don't mind.
Sure.
We'd love to have you back on sometime. And this is one place that we have like Travis Hogan, and we have Trevor Vance. We have some other. Oh, we have Nicole Sherry. She's got a page on here that she uploads pictures to once in a while. She's pretty busy, but she'll be on a Tuesday talk show here soon. But I just try to introduce a lot of pros to the people that's out there that want to learn what we do and how we get things done. So I just want to make the industry a little bit better. But I appreciate the time you had today, and hopefully you can come back on sometime.
I hope so too. This was awesome. I will definitely upload some pictures and try to be more active on this and help you, any lawn care people that have any questions ever. I mean, any major league, minor league, basic groundskeeper, most of us happy to share our secrets. There's nothing that we're not trying to make all of us succeed. We're not super competitive. Everybody wants the grass to be greener. So ask questions. Anybody's willing to answer them.
That is awesome. I appreciate it. We might put a page up here for you, so you can just load stuff to your page. So when someone has to ask you a question, they can just go to that page, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, so we'll put you right below Nicole Sherry, and you can just load up pictures on there, and people ask you questions, and they know that you're busy, and when you have time, you can answer them and stuff. So that'd be awesome. I really appreciate that.
It works for me. Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
It's our pleasure. I mean, thank you very much for coming on and spending about an hour and a half with us. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.